Welcome to Soar and Pair, Why Not Together, episode 12.
Episode 12. Hi guys.
It's good to have you with us this week. We're excited to share. Of course, Soar and Pair means we are soaring together to explore new adventures while inspiring others to create their own. And this week, we're going to talk a little bit about anger and how to constructively express feelings. Oh yeah, she gave me the stink eye on the podcast, but we laugh about it, but it's definitely something that we're all dealing with today.
Oh, for sure.
But we'll get into that in a minute. And we also want to remind our podcasters that you can connect with us on a lot of different podcast platforms out there, from Stitcher to Google Podcasts to Spotify and iTunes and on and on and on.
Right.
So we're grateful for our podcast audience, even though you can't see us. But thank you for tuning in, and of course our YouTube channel audience as well.
Of course. Good to see you guys again.
Awesome.
Hope you had a good week.
Yeah, so speaking of the week, you know, the week was a busy week, very interesting. I think both of us are, if it's even possible, I think we say this every time, getting busier.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, my work was, I think I took more steps this last week than I have the previous 2 months.
Yeah, I would agree with that. His ankle's really swollen this week.
I work in a very, very long building because I'm not here working, when I say here, at home, telecommuting 5 days a week anymore.
Right.
So 3 days a week I'm basically walking the length of a football field back and forth all day long.
He comes home at night and it's pretty swollen. I make him put it up and ice it.
Yeah, but it's good. It's good physical therapy for it, and I want to get it stronger. So I just gotta hang in there.
Yeah.
But as far as my music goes, I have a good friend of mine named Kenny Thames, Thames, and he has a group on Facebook called Alive Spiritual Connections. But he's also he's a gospel pianist. Has a lot of piano teachers. He has a studio. Just a talented individual, and I had the privilege of going and tuning his piano. His piano tuner he had for 20 years passed away, and he was looking for one, and so I tuned it. He was very happy with how that worked out, and he even recorded me. I wasn't watching as I was playing his baby grand, and he put that on Facebook.
Those are the best ones, I think.
Yeah.
When you don't know, I think those are the best times to catch somebody.
Yeah, and it was great. I mean, had a lot of views to it, and he recommended me to all his friends of piano tuning, which I really appreciate very much. So it was a good connection with Kenny, and I plan to go back and actually he wanted to record a few pieces of me doing for his musical group. So you know, it's all about making connections in music and you know, meeting people. Like some of you may have seen on my YouTube channel. The networking. My friend Anthony Keys, who's a painter, artist, but he's a great singer, and he and I recorded several of my songs together, and I've been putting those out on my YouTube channel, Jim Sorensen. In fact, what I plan to do is, you know, put out a classical piece or pieces that I've done one week, and then an original song the next week. So you want to subscribe to that YouTube channel as well.
Those are fun. Those are a lot of fun.
Also posted on Facebook as well.
Yeah, and you have joined some music contests as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so songwriting contests. So you know, it's all about putting these original songs out there to see if you know, they gain traction, and so. That's always my hope. So I'm always taking a look and seeing what's out there. So more to come on that, but you know, it's exciting, and it's all about continuing that musical journey that I'm looking to take as well. So I'll keep you updated on that. So what about you, Sandy?
What about me?
What about you? That is
where to begin?
Oh my gosh, it's gonna take an hour.
How much time do you have?
Yeah, not enough. Let's just talk about this last week.
Okay. Well, this last week was busy for me as well. Just, you know, getting busier at work and really finding myself with less and less time to do other things right now.
Right.
Just, yeah, kind of that wax and wane that we go through.
Well, and you've transitioned back to being a nurse case manager without getting too much into the
Right.
weeds. So you're back to helping more people on an in-depth level.
Getting busier.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what you like to do because
I love it.
she's really, really good at, and I've heard her on the phone without breaking any HIPAA laws,
Right.
but I've heard her connect with people on the phone, and I think you're really good at starting with somebody who's like, who are you? You solicitor, you know, get away from me, and cranky old, you're another medical professional that doesn't care about me. And then by the end of the conversation, like, oh, honey, thank you so much. This has been so helpful. When are we going to talk again? Time and time again, right? It's like converting those.
It's about connecting with people. And I love that. I really do love that part of my work. I like meeting people very much like you do. I've watched you do it a million times. Meeting people wherever they're at and just really, more of that personal connection, taking the robotics out of it and just being real with somebody. Forget about everything else that you have to do. Who are you?
Right. And I think people aren't used to that with, not saying that other medical professionals aren't this way, but I think everybody's so stressed and everybody is really...
We tend to get very task oriented.
Yeah.
And I think it's a real common problem with medical people. I think with any job, but medical people specifically, because notoriously we are understaffed.
Right.
And so it's easy to fall into that. I think we all have to remind ourselves not to.
Right. And what I hear from you every day is, hey, how's it going? And you're just very down to earth and real, and I think you disarm people really well, and I can tell you enjoy that part of your job.
I do.
And
I do.
Especially the crusty old men, you've told me before.
I love them. I have a soft spot for them. I can't help it.
Which
men and women. Yeah.
So talking about your nursing, let's talk a little bit. It's been a while since we've talked about your energy healing, Stillpoint Energy,
Yes.
and how you're taking all this wonderful experience that you have and continue to have as an RN, and how you're going to apply it to Stillpoint and how you're moving forward with that.
Like we spoke last week, I think it was last week, about being the bridge. Really, my goal is to be the bridge between the Western traditional approach and the holistic or integrative approach, being the bridge between the two worlds and bringing them together instead of one or the other.
And I think with that in mind, I thought, and I think we were both talking about it before, it would be really nice for people to understand, instead of just calling it energy healing,
Right.
a little more in depth.
What is it?
What is it, and how are you going to apply it in this sort of idea as a bridge?
Okay, so I'll explain what polarity is, and we'll get into the other aspects of what I do in a different episode, right?
Right.
Today, I'd like to tell you what polarity is, because I don't think people really understand sometimes what that means. And Dr. Stone is the person who created polarity, and what it is it's a flow of life force energy, and like a magnet, we have a positive, negative, and a neutral. And that's, regarding the flow of energy through our body. And that neutral is still point. See, it's coming together now, right?
Yeah. So that makes sense, though. It really does.
Yeah. So the neutral is the still point. That's kind of what our goal is to find that, and to find the blockages within our bodies, because that is how dis-ease occurs, or pain, or it's really good for people with PTSD, pain, any discomfort. It's all related to a block of that flow. And so if we can, you know, hone in on those areas and release or open up the flow, then that's when relief comes. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. I'm positive about it. I'm not negative.
That was good. I'll let you have that one.
I don't want to be oppositional now.
But this is not massage.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so I can work within. Sometimes there is a light touch. It can go from light to medium to deep touch, and it's more of an acupressure type touch and sometimes gentle movement, but it's not massage per se.
Okay.
And although it can be combined with massage if you're licensed in it, which I'm not.
Isn't it true though, without getting too deep into it, that you can also do it long distance?
Yes, and thank you, because I was going to get into that, is you can work with light touch, or you can work in the field, meaning above the person without touch, because some people just don't like to be touched. Or I can do it long distance, as I was describing before, because where your focus goes, the energy flows. And I can tap into the person, either, you know, via Zoom over the phone. I tap into you and I can kind of feel where the energy isn't flowing through, and we can work with your energy long distance.
So getting back to what you said about being the bridge, this seems very, very different from the nursing, medical, prescription world.
It is.
So how do you bridge, or how would you bridge those two for somebody?
The beauty of polarity is it can be done in conjunction with any of the Western approaches. It's not going to interfere with any of your daily required medications or therapies that you're already doing. You can do it in addition to.
Because it doesn't necessarily wipe away all the symptoms somebody is having when you start working in the energy field, right?
No, it does work. Here's the thing, is it does work at the cellular level. It opens things up, and so you might notice over time that, and huge disclaimer here, you might notice over time that you require less medication, or that you're moving easier. But it's not a guarantee of that. That's something for your medical doctor to decide with you.
Right. Right. Well, and I think it's exciting that you are really looking to integrate both, because one thing that I think is really important is the balance, and I guess polarity is all about balancing the energies, right?
It's all about it, exactly.
But also balancing traditional medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't call it alternative, do we? We call it what?
Integrative.
Integrative.
Yeah, because it's not an alternative, it's in addition to.
Right.
It doesn't have to be one or the other anymore. It never did, but I think now we're getting to a point as a society that we're recognizing it. You know, we're recognizing there's a huge place for this in medicine. And, you know, there's so many people in pain who cannot get the pain control that they need anymore because of, like, the opioid crisis. You know, and so doing something like this instead is a great alternative. There is the alternative word, but it's an alternative to medications, and you can use it in addition to what you're doing. And one thing to know too is polarity isn't just about the energy work. It's about the counseling around it, the nutrition, the exercise. It's a whole system. It's not just the energy work.
So people have to take part in their own
Absolutely.
healing.
And that's really a big thing for me, is really empowering people to do for themselves and to take control and autonomy for their own health.
And as a nurse, I've heard you say too that it's really important, even going back to your RN hat, that, you know, people should understand why they're taking the medicine they're taking, and you know, following not only what the doctor says, but the exercise, the healthy eating. That medicine, whether it's traditional or energy, isn't there to just do it for you and you sit back and allow it to just make you
take
better. and
there's no magic pill for anybody.
Right.
Yeah, there's no magic therapy for anybody. Until people are willing to take part in it, and that comes for all of us at different times and stages, and that's okay too, because that's part of the process.
Right.
But when people are ready to become more active in their own care, then this is a great alternative to what they were doing before, to just kind of try something new and take control.
And you did have an experience with your daughter Shay.
I
You
did.
were helping her move, or not move, but pack.
Yes.
And just briefly describe that.
So this was pretty cool. Yes, my daughter and her boyfriend, they just bought a house. So excited for them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so their family, they're buying their first home. And so I went over to help them pack. And Shay has back pain very much like her mother. And so I decided she asked me to work on her back a little bit. And so I was doing that, and I just started doing energy work for her before I worked on her back, because she has me pop her back and stuff. And she felt it immediately. She said, when I was just touching on her neck and her sacrum, I was connecting the two poles, the positive and the negative poles, and just feeling the pulse between them. It just brings, it's so comforting. And we call it rocking the dural tube, but that's something else. But I was just holding them, and she said she could feel the pulse in her thighs. And it was really hot. My hands got hot, and she could feel the heat, and it surprised her. She hasn't had any work before. She's talked about it, but this was the first time she had it, and she really liked it.
And I can also say too, at the risk of this sounding like a commercial for your business, but it's really true, that it's more than just, I know some of you who are listening to this are thinking, that sounds like a lot of woo-woo
voodoo
new age stuff, but I can tell you you can literally feel what's going on.
Yeah.
Many times you've had your hand up at a certain part of my body, like my shoulder, and then you're working down to my legs, and I still feel I still feel what I think is your hand in my shoulder, and it just blows me away.
Well, and I have to say too, here's the beauty of it, is you don't have to believe in it for it to work.
There you go.
Yeah, because the energy, it's all about the physical energy that we all have in our bodies. Everything's an electrical current within our systems, and that's what we're working on. It's not some new age voodoo.
Yeah.
It's about the physiological current going through our bodies, and all we're doing is tapping into that.
Well, and I think with your knowledge of anatomy and your medical background,
it
really
just all makes sense.
It fits very well, because it is combining science with
exactly, and I think that's what I love so much about it is the science.
There's a
of
solid science to it, not just
it's a doctor that created it,
right.
And there is a solid science to it.
So look it up if you want. Polarity, Polar, ITY, Polarity. Sandy will sometime in the near future be scheduling appointments through the Facebook page, so if that really interests you, just continue to follow us. We'll let you know when that happens. There'll be some free appointments first.
Yes.
And as long as go ahead.
And I'm doing the polarity and craniosacral, and I'll talk more about the craniosacral another time. But if you're interested in looking it up, you can do that. They really go hand in hand, polarity and craniosacral, and it's a very gentle treatment. It's usually no more than the weight of a nickel of pressure if I do it in person. Yeah.
And these days with the COVID crisis, actually doing it
long distance makes more sense.
It's actually, you can get
really
just the same amount of benefit, and people really feel it even when you're not in the same vicinity.
Great example of that is my daughter's boyfriend, her mother. his mother, excuse me, Christy is her name, and she had asked me to do some work for her. And she found herself while I was sending energy to her, she could feel it, and she said, I just keep wanting to take these deep breaths and open up, which is something I was focusing on at the time. And she goes, what are you doing to me? I said, okay, now cluck like a chicken.
I am controlling you.
If I can make you take deep breaths.
No, but she really felt it. You know,
she did.
It's interesting how people get freaked out, but we're really talking about, you know, science, science-based.
Yeah.
You know,
it just scares people, I think, because they don't understand it. But the beauty of this work is this has become mainstream, and it's gaining traction to the point that even in banner systems, hospital systems here in Arizona, they have a wellness nurse on staff in each of their hospitals, and they're offering Reiki and different types of energy work
yes.
at the hospitals because they're finding how well it works.
Well, yeah, if the hospitals and insurance companies are recognizing it.
And that's exciting to me because that's exactly the path I'm going, is to bridge them and to see them doing it too.
Right, and I think taking the new aging is voodoo out of it, and just this is normal. You know, I mean, things have shifted over the last 20 or 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, there's shows on TV about mediums. You know, you have the Hollywood medium, and you have this or that, where 30 years ago that was like, oh no, that's, you know, don't talk to the dead, and yet it's a beautiful thing, but again, people are opening up to more and more ways. And, you know, I think all of us struggle one thing or another with our body. So to be open to alternative ways, or to integrate what you're doing that works for you over here with that kind of energy work.
Anytime that we can, if it can have any kind of benefit to reduce your pain, improve your life in some small way, that's a win, right? And honestly, when we're taking so many medications, if we can reduce some of those, even better. Because whenever, you know, in the nursing world, when we have over 7 or 8 medications, the risk of polypharmacy reactions or interactions goes up into like the 90 percentile. It's a huge thing. Not that that's a critical reaction, but it's a reaction none the same.
Right.
Right? So the risk goes up the more medications we have, and if we can work on that a little bit and slowly reduce it, what a win.
And it's exciting. I know we could probably talk the rest of the podcast about this.
Oh my gosh, I can go on and on.
So we will
great.
Definitely start to highlight this more as Sandy gets closer to the point of making appointments with people or offering those through the Facebook page.
And I am taking appointments now, just not as often.
Oh, okay.
I have been doing them here and there. So, I mean, if you're interested, definitely reach out. My availability just isn't quite as open as it will be.
So let's get to the theme of this week, which is anger. And it starts off with, we are, of course, always encouraging people to comment on our YouTube channel or our podcast.
Yes.
And we had a comment last week.
Yes, we did. Last week, someone took offense to something that we said and became quite upset and actually unfollowed us for it. And I just want to say I completely support that. If that's what this person needs to do, I'm okay with that, you know?
Yes.
I respect that. But this is a safe place for everyone to speak their mind, as long as we're doing it in a respectful manner and that we're honoring each other's space. You know, we welcome differences of opinion.
Well, yeah.
Anytime.
It's a part about being open, but I think we can agree without getting into the reasons why. There's a lot of anger going on right now in the world.
There is.
There's a lot of anger going on right now. I could say, you know, individually, I know that on the economic front with unemployment, there's a lot of stress happening there, and anger.
Oh, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of it.
And, you're seeing a lot of anger as well on the medical front.
Yeah.
And so in talking about anger, what's your take on anger in terms of what you see out there and how you look at it and how you respond?
My take on it?
Well, or what do you see in terms of, how people are expressing their anger and what the best way is for us, like we did with this person in this comment, to respond and help maybe, de-escalate?
Well, with that, I think anger usually comes from lack of control and the rage that, I don't know if that's really the right word. It does turn into rage,
It really
road
does.
Rage.
The age of rage is what we were reading about, right?
Exactly, that we live in an age of rage, and that's actually not a new thing, unfortunately, but of course it continues to escalate and get more and more out of control. And I think when we're not heard, or when we feel that we're not heard, which we kind of talked about last week, it just keeps getting bigger, and it just keeps getting more and more out of control. It's more about not having a place to put it or what to do about it.
Right.
Right?
And I think it comes also to a healthy expression of feelings. So we're not allowed to say, we don't feel, for whatever reason, sometimes we're blocking ourselves, or sometimes we're too afraid to speak our mind.
Right.
Especially to people we know, right?
Right. Right.
I wouldn't accuse you of that. You always speak your mind, and I appreciate that. And it's not always anger, but sometimes it is.
Sometimes.
I mean, you are somebody.
I'll usually tell you if it is, though. I'm kind of mad right now. Yeah.
But I appreciate the fact that it's out there, because I think there's a healthy release of that pressure cooker effect, right? Because I think we have both been in past relationships where when those feelings were not expressed, it just became more and more dense and pushed down.
Yeah, and it just festers, and then it gets bigger and badder than it really needed to be in the first place. It turns into something more than it really was.
Right. And I think something you and I expressed in our very first episode, and it's worth bringing up again, is that we never want knots to form.
Right.
And so if there's a knot forming and that needs to be expressed even in an angry way, better to do that than to allow it to continue to fester and to tighten before it's this big ball of twine and then that's where the volcanic explosion happens.
Well, and then you don't make sense anymore, because when you explode in this volcanic way, you start spewing stuff from 6 years ago that you never talked about, and it's just, what are you talking about? Where'd that even come from?
Right.
So I think like you're saying, speaking it in the moment, or at least at the time,
right,
at least close enough to the time. Sometimes you need a minute to cool down before you speak, and that's okay too. Right?
Yeah. Take a big deep breath before.
Yeah. But not letting too much time go by, not pushing it down. But having a healthy outlet for it, and finding sometimes together a solution to that.
Right.
Because it's not just about being heard, but now what do I do with it?
Right. Isn't that what we read about, that the world is really good about creating situations and things to make people angry, but not really any solutions of what to do?
Well, and it's intentional oftentimes, because that's what brings viewers back again and again and again, like the news and these TMZ type things, right?
Right.
Dirty laundry kind of ideas.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. I that spoke to me, because it was like, okay, that's great, but what about the solution? Now, what do you do with the anger? How do you resolve it so that you're not carrying it?
Well, and without getting into it, so people are protesting right now for the various reasons, but that is an expression of anger. That is actually, as long as it's peaceful, a good thing.
It is a good thing. And that's actually a great example because that's old anger.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do with it? How do you get past it, and how do you stop regurgitating the same things and actually make progress, which I feel like they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right, and it's an opportunity, I think, for...
I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, for our society to grow and step up to the next level. And I think in a relationship, it's the same thing. I know some of the best examples of us growing is when I've finally been able to express something to you. Maybe I couldn't for whatever reason, but when I finally get it out and express it, and you're like, okay, and there's this just sort of release.
It's like you can breathe again.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say with this podcast, I was just so resistant. I'm like, I don't want to do this.
And I was like, why?
And I had to get it out for, I'm not going to go into all the reasons, but I had to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
And you listened respectfully. You gave me the space. But after I got it out, I'm like, all right, let's try it. Let's go ahead and give it a try. And I was able to get past it. So I was able to do something with that resistance. Maybe it's not the greatest example.
No, it is a good example because I was able to watch you just by holding space and letting you talk it out. Right. I was able to watch you go through the process that you're referring to. Mm-hmm. And it's not like I drug you kicking and screaming into this. It was, okay, he was able to talk it out, and then once he was able to speak it, then it was like, okay, this isn't that bad. Now I'm ready.
Right.
And you came to that on your own, so it was interesting to see too.
But going back to rage for a minute, though, because I think that's really something that, we see on the roads, right?
You got something to share?
No, I was actually going to poke fun at you.
Oh,
on the road.
Okay, good point.
Expletives to come out very quickly. But again, as long as it doesn't turn into, and that's scary. Road rage has been an issue with people in the past.
Yes.
And I think safety reasons and everything else, that's not the best place to express anger. So what I'm trying to say, I'm not saying this about you, but for people in general, that's not the time. There's a healthy time to express anger.
Right.
Right? And the healthy time would not be on the road going 75 miles an hour. That's my point. So, I think, just letting your anger splat all over the place, and I'm not talking about you right now, but in general, is not us, because then that just becomes a habit of anger, right? Yeah. So it just everything you look at enrages you. That you've gotten to a point where I think you need help.
Right.
You really need cognitive therapy, and you need healthy releases, right?
Yeah. Well, and right now, what I see right now too is people don't know where to put their anger.
Right. And
personally, with everything that's going on in the world right now, I've gone through the gambit of emotion. I've gone from feeling sad and not sure what to do with that to kind of pissed off, not sure what to do with that, and then not knowing what to do. And so, it can get difficult at times until you kind of figure it out. But being aware of where you're at in the process, I think, is important. Being honest with yourself and those around you, and like you said, not taking it out on people on the road.
Right, and then grounding yourself. So to me, I'm wearing the shirt heavily meditated. For those of you who can't see on the podcast, whether it's meditation, whether it's going out and getting your hands dirty in the garden, or walking, exercising, those kind of healthy outlets. Mm-hmm. I think
getting grounded is really important. It really is.
It's a good way to process what you're thinking too, instead of just letting it stir up and then, covering it with drugs or alcohol, which are obviously the unhealthy ways.
Well,
or
pouring
medication.
pink paint on it, you can
Yes.
pour pink paint on crap, but it's still crap with pink paint on it.
That's right. Right.
So.
Yeah, so don't pour pink paint on your anger. Right? That's really what we're saying here.
Exactly.
But kind of to wrap this up, I feel like, there are, at the same time when we're cautioning, I think anger should be expressed, but in the right way, in a respectful way, with those that you know. Because if you don't, then you're most likely to take it out on strangers, which, we see happen all the time, if not obviously on social media, which we won't get into right now.
Yeah.
But I think that's really, really important, is have that person that you can really be honest with, that won't take offense, but that will listen to you.
Yeah, and I want to be real clear, I didn't take offense to the person who got upset with us. I actually appreciated it. I think that person was actually being pretty honest, and that's okay. But finding a healthy way to get it out is important for everybody, for everyone. We see it all the time where people take it out on others that they don't know because it's easier.
Right.
Right,
and basically the general unhappiness or frustration of life comes out. The smallest thing will set people off.
Yeah.
And I think that's a way to avoid that, obviously, is to not bottle things up. Again and again and again.
Easier said than done.
No,
Come on.
and we're always working on that, aren't we?
Yeah. And I mean, none of this is easy. We know that.
Well, it's easy to talk about. We got it all figured out
Oh,
here.
sure.
But I wanted to end.
But we're working on it.
Yeah, we are working on it. I wanted to end this segment with a quote that I found that I really liked. It says, "Frustration and conflict are messages from the universe that it's time to back off. When you find your center again, act."
Beautiful.
So I think, to wrap it up, we all are frustrated for different reasons. You don't have to use that moment to try to figure everything out. A lot of times, once that you've expressed whatever level from mild upset to rage, back off, ground yourself, and then act. Do something about it, because I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I agree with you. In that moment is not the time to act.
No.
That's not what we're saying at all. Yeah. Take your moment to get through it and then act. Find a way after the fact that you can act and find a positive outlet.
Yes, a
right?
constructive way of acting instead of a destructive way of expressing the anger.
Good way to put it. I like that.
So, awesome. But thinking, I wanted to lighten the mood a little bit with the Sandyism today.
Okay.
So,
See what you came up with this week.
well, and we may have mentioned it in a previous one, but I want to highlight it today. It's called off-roading.
You have brought this up a couple times.
I love this one. So
Obviously.
And that's what I guess you and I, the podcast is really off-roading. It's really not taking the path that everybody else is taking, right?
Right.
So when you say, we're off-roading, we're really going off the highway into the fringes of whatever, right?
Yes.
So when you're always off-roading though, I think you have I think you've got a 4x4 in your truss.
I love off-road. There was an old commercial. This real pretty model. She's off-roading. And she turns and she goes, "I love off-roading." I was like, oh my gosh. It stuck with me.
Obviously, and that's going to stick with me for a while. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in to our episode today on that note that we love off-roading. That she loves off-roading.
I do.
But we appreciate, again, feedback. Whatever feedback you want to give us on the YouTube channel.
Please keep it coming.
Follow us on our Facebook page. We appreciate all the connections there as well. And give us feedback. And again, all the podcast platforms I mentioned at the beginning, continue to follow us there and give us feedback. We are continuing to learn as we go here.
Yes, we are. Yes.
But
and by the way, I just wanted to give a shout out to my dad. Thank you for your comments and your support. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Dad, very much. But again, remember Soar and Pair. We have both platforms where you can see our faces or hear our voices. Why not together? And we appreciate you following us, and we will see you next week. So have a great week, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.